Everybody wants to be seen as a leader until leadership starts costing them emotionally. Because leadership sounds exciting when people imagine influence, authority, recognition, promotion, and of course, success. But very few people talk honestly about pressure, isolation, emotional exhaustion, difficult decision, misunderstood intentions while carrying responsibility when outcomes become uncertain. And honestly, that's the part of leadership that changes people because eventually leadership stops feeling like a title and starts feeling like an emotional responsibility. One of the biggest misconceptions people have about leadership is believing leadership and management are the same thing. Let me course correct you right now, family. They're not. And honestly, some of the best leaders I've ever seen understood how to balance both because management focuses on coordination, process, execution, structure, but leadership, oh, I love this thing called leadership. Leadership is the ability to see something inside of people they may not fully see inside themselves yet. That's the difference. And if I'm being honest, one of the most painful parts about leadership is realizing how many leaders unintentionally place people inside of boxes. Well, this is how I did it. This is the process that worked for me. This is the way we've always done it. But I'm talking about exceptional leaders understand something deeper. People grow differently. And sometimes people need room to experiment, think differently, fail safely, problem solve, and develop confidence through experience. That's how growth happens. I learned this lesson deeply through a leader I once worked with. Let's just call him Tom. Now, to be fair, Tom, he genuinely cared about removing roadblocks for the team. But one day, tension developed between us because whenever I brought him problems, I also brought attempted solutions, team discussions, lessons learned, and of course, possible next steps. Well, that frustrated Tom because I remember him saying, "This is why I'm here. I'm supposed to help remove roadblocks." And I told him something that completely changed the conversation. I said, "Tom, I agree. But if the team and I never learn how to think through problems ourselves, then eventually you will no longer need us." That shifted the room because leadership is not only solving problems for people, sometimes, and I do mean sometimes, leadership is developing people through problems. Oh, I like that, family, because now, to his credit, Tom, he did pause. He thought about it. He said, "You know what? Your ideology makes sense, but I still want to know immediately when an issue happens." And if I'm being real with myself, I kind of understood his perspective too. However, I also understand that either you make the decision to trust your team or not. Yes, leadership carries accountability. That's the painful part most people never talk about openly. When things go wrong, leaders, you know what they do. They absorb the pressure first. When things go right, they push it, the praise out to the team. And that's emotional, expensive leadership, especially when you genuinely, and I do mean genuinely, care about your people. That is one of the hardest lessons I've learned about leadership come through pain, not books, not certifications, not frameworks, pain. Because leadership eventually teaches you something difficult about trust. I've had moments where I protected teams publicly, absorbed accountability publicly, defended people publicly, only to later discover some of those same people still criticize me privately behind my back. Since it's just you and me here, family, that pain hits different for a leader because intentionally you're thinking, all I had to do was step back. That realization hurts, especially when you genuinely try to protect people. Leadership starts reminding me of those trust exercise where somebody stands behind you and tells you to fall backwards, trusting that they'll catch you. Well, sometimes as a leader, people don't catch you. Sometimes the team is not there emotionally when pressure becomes real. And the pain, hold the pain. This is the part where I'm going to unpack for you because you often do not discover the true strength of a team during comfort. You discover it through adversity. You discover it through pressure, through accountability, through difficult seasons. And see, that's when leadership reveals itself. It reveals its character, its loyalty, its emotional maturity, ownership, and trust. That lesson alone changed the way I view leadership forever. Because exceptional leaders is not just about guiding people successfully, it's also learning how to endure the emotional pain that sometimes comes with believing in people before they fully believe in themselves. And maybe, just maybe, That's why leadership becomes so emotionally heavy sometimes, because the deeper you care about people, the more painful, disappointing it can become when adversity finally reveals who you're truly standing beside you all along. Principle number one: exceptional leaders develop thinkers, not dependents. Oh, this is going to be a tough one. See, reason why I love this principle is because when you unpack this, one of the biggest mistakes leaders make is believing leadership means solving every problem from the team. It doesn't. Exceptional leaders develop people capable of thinking independently under pressure. Because if leaders constantly jump into every issue immediately, eventually the team stops problem solving, experimenting, taking full accountability and ownership, building confidence, and developing leadership capacity themselves. Because exceptional leaders is not about creating permanent followers, it's about developing capable people who can eventually navigate pressure, complexity, and decision making with maturity themselves. Because leadership confidence is rarely developed through comfort zone. Experiment with these actionable tips when problems arise. Encourage teams to bring both the issue and possible solutions. Next one: create environments where expectation and learning are allowed without the fear of immediate punishment. Why is this important? Teams that never develop independent thinking often struggle the moment pressure increases or leadership becomes unavailable, because dependence limits growth. But environments that encourage responsibility during problem solving, they create stronger confidence, they create stronger communication, they create stronger accountability. They eventually create a leadership development in that resource or resources. And over time, those teams become more resilient under pressure. Here's my professional advice: exceptional leaders do not only remove roadblocks, they develop people capable of navigating future roadblocks for themselves. But eventually, leadership becomes emotionally difficult once accountability becomes attached to your name. Principle number two: leadership is emotionally expensive. One of the most misunderstood parts of leadership is that emotional weight attached to the responsibility. It feels like a weight vest that's on you that you're trying to move, and you have these extra pounds. You're not upset because you understand the endurance that it builds. You're not upset because you understand what is making you become. Because one thing that can happen is when things go wrong, leaders, again, have to absorb this pain, have to absorb this pressure. And when things go right, exceptional leaders know to redirect that praise toward the team. That balance is emotionally exhausting sometimes, especially when you genuinely, and I do mean again, family, genuinely care, because leadership often requires emotional resistance, professionalism under stress, calm communication under pressure, carrying on uncertainty quietly, and protecting team morale while eternally feeling overwhelmed yourself. Most people don't fully understand leadership pressure until accountability becomes personal to them. As I always say, it pulls up at your doorstep, rings the doorbell. If you don't answer, it knocks on the door. Because eventually every leader has to decide, will this pressure make me bitter or will it make me emotionally stronger? I've wrestled with that personally, especially during seasons where I protected people that I just knew had my back. But in return, it wasn't equal. That pain teaches a difficult lesson about leadership, trust, and emotional maturity. However, I will not change anything that happened in those moments, because those moments right there teach and train me to become a better leader, become a better person, become a better individual that understands to leverage their discernment to know who and who does not have my back. Two actionable tips I'd love for you to experiment with: build emotional recovery habits outside of work and leadership pressure. Next one: separate identity from temporary leadership outcomes or criticism. Why is this important, family? People who underestimate the emotional cost of leadership often burn out quickly once pressure becomes constant. Because leadership is not only strategic responsibility, it's emotional responsibility too. And I do mean, and these leaders who fail to manage emotional pressure effectively eventually struggle with resentment, exhaustion, frustration, emotional isolation. Here's my professional advice, family. Leadership becomes dangerous when leaders carry pressure publicly but process pain privately without healthy emotional outlets. And eventually, adversity begins revealing something about teams that comfort alone never could. Principle number three: adversity reveals the truth about teams. This is my very favorite. This is my favorite one, family. And there's reason why this is my favorite one, because when you have pressure, when you have adversity, when you have pressure, okay, you get where I'm going. When you have pressure and adversity, one of the hardest lessons leadership teaches is that you don't fully know the strength of your team during those comfortable seasons. You discover it during adversity. Pressure reveals the accountability, the ownership, the loyalty, the communication, and the emotional maturity. Oh, did I forget something? Yes, trust, because that realization can be painful at sometimes, because many leaders eventually experience moments where they protect people publicly, only to understand when things become uncomfortable, they disappear, especially when you genuinely believe in the team. But adversity exposes what comfort can hide. And honestly, the truth changed how I've seen leaders lead and how I've led. But I know now, and I fully understand, trust is not fully proven through words. It's proven through behavior under pressure. That's the difficult season. Often leadership education emotionally, it doesn't reveal, it doesn't unpack. It's not that you can pick up a book and learn this. It's one of those things that you have to go through it yourself, because adversity eventually reveals who takes ownership, who avoids the accountability, who protects the team, who protects themselves, who stands firm under pressure, and finally, who disappears emotionally when things become difficult. Because those lessons, although they are painful, but I tell you, when you make a decision to become a leader, they are so valuable, because leadership maturity grows when people stop romanticizing teams and start understanding human behavior under pressure realistically. Experiment with these actionable tips. Pay attention to how people respond during difficult seasons, not during successful ones. Next one, build teams where accountability and ownership are emotionally safe and encouraged. Why is this important? Leaders who ignore behavioral patterns during adversity often repeatedly place trust in environments or people willing to handle pressure maturely, because difficult seasons expose character faster than comfortable seasons ever would eventually. Emotional mature leaders learn to evaluate trust through consistency under pressure instead of just words alone. Here's my professional advice, family. Pressure rarely creates character. More often, it reveals the character that was already there. And maybe that's the real lesson. Leadership becomes painful the moment you realize caring deeply about people does not, and I repeat, does not guarantee they will always carry pressure with the same level of maturity you hope they would. Here's the truth, family. Some of you are listening to me right now, and you're carrying leadership pressure that people around you may never fully understand. And if we want to keep it real, let's be real for a moment. The pressure becomes emotionally heavy when you genuinely care about the outcome, the team, the vision, the responsibility, and most of all, how you're working on becoming a better leader. Because leadership is not only strategy and communication. Sometimes leaderships carry disappointment quietly while still showing up professionally the next day. Sometimes leadership is protecting people publicly while processing frustration privately. Sometimes leadership is realizing adversity reveals the truth about teams you were not emotionally prepared to discover. I understand that feeling deeply, but one of my biggest lessons in leadership taught me this. Exceptional leadership is not about controlling people. It's about developing people while still maintaining the emotional strength to endure the pressure attached to the responsibility. That process that I just told you about, it changes you. But eventually, leadership teaches you patience, emotional discipline, discernment, resilience, and maturity, not through comfort, though, through pressure. So if leadership feels heavy sometimes, that does not automatically mean you are failing. Sometimes it means you actually care. And maybe that's why leadership becomes emotionally expensive, because the deeper you care about people and outcome, the more pressure you're willing to carry trying to protect both. And maybe that's the real shit, because leadership stops being about controlling outcomes and starts becoming emotional discipline to keep carrying, leading, and building, even after pressure reveals who was truly willing to carry the weight with you. I understand it. I've lived it. And honestly, I'm still living it. But we must build anyway. If you're new to the episode, I go by the name of ED. For all you smart and intelligent folks out there, that just simply means Ed. Until next time.